I turn my mute off.
Did you see the last of it? No, I think it's not. Oh. There you go.
Art, I have a question.
Art's muted.
Art, can you hear me?
He probably stepped away from his computer.
He's eating right now. He may have just muted himself so that we don't hear his crunching of chips.
Much obliged.
Maybe someone else understood when Jeanette covered it, but did I hear correctly that on the global grant that you can get a reverse global grant right now because of COVID, and they have waived the 30% from an international club participation?
She did. I think that's right. But this is Jonathan. I don't know the particulars of it because it's outside my area.
That's what I heard her say.
I think Art said that. That's a question for Art when he comes back. About the COVID.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's get clarification from him on that. I'm going through my notes to see. I don't think they
Honzo,
waived.
udělej jídlo.
Yeah.
On sedí vedně, ten parchan. No. No, zase jsem měl 2 blechy, Honzo. Teď. Jeden jsem zabil, tak jsem měl na ruce a pak jen ode mě skočil. Buď je to v té židli, jak na tom seděl, nebo to nešlo to. No, a je to kožená židle, co bys v tom dělali, ne, ty blechy? Není co žát. No. Co? No, a ty ho držíš tentokrát. On ti uteče.
minutes. We have 4 minutes till liftoff.
Sweet.
Oh, what's happening? Well, yeah, they're closed for the rest of the year, of course. And
Jonathan, ready to rock?
Ready to rock. So welcome everybody to the District Grant Seminar. My name's Jonathan Fleeter, and I'm gonna that you all can see my face first. I'm going to be presenting today's District Grants seminar, so I appreciate everybody making it. This is a required attendance for 3 members of your club in order to be eligible to submit for the next cycle of district grants, which is for the 2020-2021 cycle. And before we kind of get rolling into everything, I'd like to ask if everybody will please go ahead and rename your name from just your name to the club that you're in, your name and then the club that you're in. And I put it on screen. I've got it's shared right now so you can see the participants that are in this room. People like 44617, we're not sure who you are or what club you're with, and Tim O'Connell's going to be keeping attendance so that your club can get the credit for being here. I know who this guy is right here. I think he's with the South Jacks Club. But please go ahead and take a second to do that. That way, as Tim's going through, he can give you credit. And I have a graphic on screen right now for those of you that can see it that shows where to do that. Basically, you click the participants at the bottom, and then that gives you a window on the right side. Right-click your name, then click More, then click Rename, then just add your club name after your name. I have it on the screen as the club name first, and that's just because I made the screen capture earlier than before I had the chance to decide where that should go. And that'll do it.
Jonathan,
so
I have one little request.
Yep.
That after everyone changes their name, if you can just go into the chat session, the chat button, and just type in hello or something, then at the end of it, I can save that chat session and I'll have everyone's name and club number and I won't have to type anything in.
Yeah, so that's right here. I'll do the same. Jonathan Fleeter, South Point. Boom. Easy like that.
Everyone do that. That'll save me hours of time. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So away we go. Just so you know, kind of the way we're going to go about this is everybody can please, mute your Zoom. If you need to interject, then feel free to. But as we're going, we want to avoid any interruption that comes from environmental noise like dogs or things like that. And I'm going to move pretty quickly slide to slide because this is kind of an instructional format. I'll provide you a link to the presentation so you can download it. It's actually in the chat window already if you scroll up, but that'll be at the end. And I'll stop periodically to take questions. So let's get going with it. And I'm going to move the chat window and participant window off my shared screen just so that you're not all having to look at it in the same place. You can just look at it on your own computers. So zip through that. So our agenda for today is to show you how to enter a grant on DACDB, to give you an example of a real world grant that's been done in the past, to give you key takeaways, and then to provide you with some important dates to remember. So, but first, I'm really curious what we're going to be doing about fall football. Inevitably people wonder who I root for and who you may root for. So bottom line is I was born in Tallahassee, so I'm a former Knoll, but I have family from Columbus, so I also have Buckeyes. My wife's from Kalamazoo, Michigan, so she brings the blue into the family, and yet before all that, I was a member of the Gator Nation. So I cheer for beer during college football season, and this is my favorite beer. If any of you ever want to get me a gift, getting me some Southern Tier Warlock is a great way to make me feel good. So grants and DACDB. First thing you need to do is go to dacdb.com. So if you haven't been there before, it's a tool that the district's provided a subscription service to clubs for. It lets you track a lot of creative needs, and it is where we host all of our grants. So you enter your username, your password, you click the login button. If you forget your password, go ahead and click the reset link, which is right here where my cursor is, and it'll send an a reset email to the email you have on file. So once your information's in, go ahead and click the login button, which is right there. That'll bring you to the district homepage, or whatever homepage you have set up on your account. So go ahead and click district. That'll take you to these functions, which are all the different things that you can do in DACDB. The one you're most interested with district grants is district grants. So click on that and that'll bring you to the overview. Now, before you start entering in your first district grant, you need to make sure that the year you're entering it in is correct. So as you see on the screen capture I have is from 2019-2020. This next cycle is 2020-2021. So you need to change your organizational year, which is this button that's right up here in the right-hand corner of your window. When you roll over, it'll turn yellow, and then it'll bring up a pop-up which lets you choose the org year. You click that down arrow right there, and that'll give you options for other years. And as you can see, they're pre-populated for future grant cycles. You want to select 2020-2021. Once you've done that, go ahead and click Change Org Year, which is that button there. That brings you to the correct place. So this is where you're going to get all of your information about the requirements and what you need to do next. You'll notice right there highlighted in yellow, typically our grant applications are due by April 30th of the year before the next grant cycle. So for 2021, that would be next week. But because of COVID, we've extended that to May 15th to try to accommodate some, some of the difficulties that have arisen from it, plus to be able to give clubs the opportunity to participate in kind of a first time ever pre-deployment of funds before approval for COVID specific projects. We talked about it in the last presentation, so we can talk through a little bit more of that at the end of this one. So what you're going to do next is you're going to click on Club Grants View. And that's going to take you to the place that you need to enter your grant. So let me open it up for questions because I haven't been looking at the chat window. All right, so we got some fans. We got the Gamecocks representing Jerry. The very last slide of this presentation is going to have that link, so we'll get that for you. I don't see any other questions. Rich, Tim, Jeanette, have you guys seen anybody ask anything?
I have not. I've seen a lot of just checking in and hellos and shout outs from everybody.
Cool. Well, we'll keep rolling. So that first part is obviously how you get to where you can enter your grant. Entering your grant. Scroll down, you've read through all of the requirements. You'll notice at the bottom that there are no approved projects yet. And that's because they don't become approved until obviously we've gotten all of our information in and we've had the chance to review it. So if you have a grant that you want to enter after this assembly, you should enter it. That just emphasizes the point that we need your grants. And once you have looked through this, you go to Club Grants View, which is in the left side. Click on that button, clubs area, so that you can grant request. There's a button that says, click here to create grant. You want to click that. That'll bring you to the grant details window. This is where you set the foundation for your grant. It gives you the chance to describe the sustainability features of it, the costs involved with it, how it meets our areas of focus, all that information is in here.
Jonathan,
so
it's Art.
be sure
I'm
to
not
enter
sure
it and be sure to be specific. I put in.
Jonathan, it's Art. And
Oh, say that again, please.
I'm not sure if it's your microphone or your bandwidth, but you're breaking up a bit.
Okay. I'll come a little bit closer and I'll also try to speak a little more slowly because that could be doing it too. Okay. hear me okay? Okay, I may have bad signal. Okay, so the initial details, the next step is to enter the project. Besides your club, we really encourage clubs to work together. It gives you some benefits of expanded capabilities and resources, but it's also in the spirit of what Rotary is all about, which is collaboration. So click on the Clubs Involved tab. You'll see your clubs already on the right side. Find the club that is going to participate with you. Obviously, you want to talk with them in advance. In this example, I've selected the Rotary Club of San Jose, which is one of my favorite clubs besides my own. And you click on the double arrow button in the middle to move it over to the right side so that it's part of your clubs involved. Once you've done that, go ahead and click Contacts. That'll bring up the Contacts window. Now, these are the people who basically are going to be added to the grant. If there's questions from the share committee about the grant, if there's missing information about the grant, these are people who could potentially help resolve that. They aren't necessarily the people who are fulfilling all of the grant, though it's good to have those people be the same people so that you don't have a communication issue. So in this example, I think I selected 2 additional people. We encourage, you'll notice there's numbers, 3 people attending the grant management seminar, 2 people doing signatures, 3 contacts. We like to say you need to have a minimum of 2, but 3 or more is obviously better in case somebody leaves the club, maybe you have an unexpected death, something happens. But the bare minimum really in this case is 3. You want to have 3 contacts. Then you click on application. So this is where you're going to really get into the weeds on the purpose of why you're doing this, the sponsoring club. There's some really specific information like where the money needs to go. One best practice is to have a dedicated bank account for all of your grant funds so that you can see money coming in and money going out for auditing, and it'll make your life easier not having to hunt down those details in the future. You can just pull your statement, provide it with any canceled checks and information. It's all together. So really encourage you to have a dedicated bank account for your grant. It's not difficult to do, but you need to have that information here on the application. So let's see, and obviously start date, completion date, try to be as accurate as possible. Obviously, you're not going to have a start date in July because you won't have approval by then, except in the case of some of these COVID grants where that could be possible. They all have to be done by April 1st of next year, of 2021. So I put in as an example just December 31st of 2020. Are there any questions about this grant application? I see that it's starting to get a little bit, starting to get some.
Hey, Jonathan, there were a couple of questions in the chat session.
Sure.
One is that where'd it go? Are the contacts all from the principal club?
So each club needs to have its contacts in it. So in case there's issue, but yeah, so when somebody's being added, like if you have you need to have 3 contacts from each. I don't want to get.
Jonathan, 2
Yeah.
different questions.
Okay.
So on the actual grant application, the lead club is the one who populates those contacts.
Okay.
Club signatures have to be established for each club.
Oh.
That is a different step. And
Got
they
it.
do not,
And
again,
it's
only the
two
lead
from each club now, Art?
It is 2, and it is only, again, the lead club, because it is the lead club. You could have 10 partner clubs, but the lead club is responsible for all funds, all receipts, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where the contacts come from, and signatures.
Got it. Okay. Other questions, Tim?
Can clubs include Rotaract clubs?
Oh, that's a good question.
That would be a no as well. They can participate. You could list them as a partner. We cannot match a Rotaract Club's funds as of yet. Rotaract is now a recognized program of Rotary, but they are not eligible for grants as of yet. I would not list them on the grant application as a partnering club. You could list them in the narrative sections, the description sections of the grant application.
Okay.
Jonathan and Dale, this is Dale from North Jacks Art. I got a question for both of you, and you may have covered this already, I'm not sure. But if we have a, like for instance, I was just talking with Pat Mulvihill, and we were looking at writing up a grant for our Salzbacher Center up here for the homeless. They have a need for 50 mattresses to replace those mattresses because some of those personnel that checked into the center were suffering from COVID-19, and we're looking to do a $10,000 grant for that. Now, a COVID grant and just a regular district grant, can one club still do both of those grants? That's my question.
Want me to go with it, Jonathan?
Yeah.
So yes, you could do a COVID, but you cannot, the COVID cannot exceed $2,000 request from the sponsoring club. The second grant, obviously we've got limited funds, everybody. We've got limited funds. We've designated $65,000 for COVID grants, and the remaining monies, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 75,000, will be for the normal district grant cycle. It is still a competitive cycle, so there's no guarantees on any grant, obviously.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Art, this is Gordon. I have another question on COVID. The application in DAC-DB has a start date, as somebody already mentioned, the start of the new Rotary year. However, the purpose of the COVID grant is to get funds out ASAP.
Yep, Gordon, if I can interrupt you, you can actually enter before the start of the Rotary year, but the COVID application, do not use the calendar icon. Simply type in the date in the same format that the icon would have populated it.
Excellent. We've entered our project into the database. It's in draft form, and it's basically shovel ready. We're just going through the process of getting everything entered in the signatures and so forth. It's been board approved, as well as a virtual meeting with the recipient to make sure that they understand how the money can be used.
Yep, and if we could hold on the COVID questions, if we have some time left at the tail end, I'm happy to fill in any of those blanks, but let's make sure Jonathan gets through the presentation.
Yep, thank you. All right, so continuing forward, once you have saved, you have to save your grant details. The next step is to enter your budget and your documents. You'll see that it'll populate at the top that your grant's named whatever you've named it to be. Next thing you need to do is you need to enter your budget, and that means adding income and expense. There's a button that says add income source, and it's pretty straightforward. You click that, then you're going to select the club that the income's coming from. So whether it's a fundraiser or it happens to be retained funds that you already have that you're contributing, you need to designate that in the fields, put in the amount, and select other club funding. Then you click add, and it'll be added to the list of income sources. You'll repeat that process for each of the income sources that you have. So if you have 3 clubs that are contributing to a project, you want to have at least 3 income sources from them. Then you're obviously going to have your grant income source. If you want to have those income sources down. It's not necessarily required if they aren't contributing funding. If they're strictly doing, like hands-on labor or something like that. But even you'll see that later there's an in-kind expense that you want to recognize. For income, it's pretty much just cash, any money that's going to be coming into the account. So I've shown you South Point and San Jose. Then you want to make sure that you enter the grant that you're actually getting from the district. So remember that the amount that you request from DDF needs to be 50% or less of your entire project. So if you have a $10,000 project, it needs to be $5,000 or less. It doesn't need to be 50%, but it has to be less than either 50% or less. So in this example, I put in 1,000 since it's a $2,000 grant, and I'm sorry, it's a $2,000 project. And you want to make sure that you mark DDF requested, because that will mark it in your list of income sources so it can be easily identified. You'll see it has a little check mark there. So once you've done all of your income, the next step is to do all of your expense. You click on the Add Expense button. Same thing as income. You indicate where the expense might be coming from. In this example, I did an equipment rental, and then you want to provide details. Be as specific as you can. $500 in this example, and then San Jose in this example is going to contribute $250 towards the, I'm sorry, there's an expense for a sign that's less than $1,000 and it's $250. In the past, the limit on any branding and signage was $500, and that has changed as of last year. It became $1,000 or less. So we want to make sure that a project isn't just to build a sign and brand Rotary, needs to make a difference in the community. So make sure that your sign expense is less than $1,000, regardless of the size of your project. You enter that, and then you click Add. So all of your expenses and your income should offset. It should be a $0 balance if you've done it right. Any questions on budget entry? Nope.
Jonathan, Bill Sorensen from Jacksonville, did Jonathan answer that question about the income sources for you? Bill asked the question for income sources. Do we
He
enter
did.
whether those funds qualify? Okay, good.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
did.
so after you posted it.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Okie doke. So once the budget part of this is done, the next part is documentation. So you click on the Documents tab, and then you've got some folders here. The main two that you need to be concerned with are Documents and Images. Documents are just that. That's where your MOU or your COI, where receipts, where invoices, any kind of documentation that supports your grant on both the expense and the income side should go in there. And then images are just that. It's where you put photographs. We encourage you to take lots of photos. Take before photos if you're doing, for instance, like a school improvement like Gainesville did. Take photos of the site before you do any work, and then take photos while you're doing the project, and then take some photos at the end. And it'll be really useful to communicate to your club and to the rest of the district what you've done, and also to the foundation. They really like to see this. So make sure to do that. The way you do it is you click on the Upload File button, and you browse to your computer, and then you select the file that you want to add. And it's the same thing with documents, images and documents. You just pull them down from a local source and post them. Then you want to make sure you save so that it all takes to this grant file. So where do you get your MOU and your COI? COI is your conflict of interest document. MOU is your memorandum of understanding. Any clubs involved need to complete these so that we make sure that we're all above board and we've got full transparency. Just because you have a conflict of interest doesn't mean you're disqualified from the grant. We encourage everybody to put it all out there, and we want to make sure that we're doing good. That's kind of the bottom line. So make sure you fill out all your documentation. You can go to RotaryFoundation6970.org district-grants in order to get those forms. Also, there's also a lot of other good information there, but for the purposes of district grants, that's where you'd go to pull them down. Any questions on where to find documents, where to upload them, any of that? I know it's pretty straightforward, but I figure I ask.
Jonathan, there was one question on the budgeting section that came in just as you were starting again.
Sure.
For in-kind expenses, should they be included in that income source?
Not in income. It would be, I think that would be considered an expense, not an income item.
In-kind donations can be included in the narrative. Do not include them in the budget. They cannot be matched with district designated funds.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, anybody? All right. So next up, once you have put in your grant and you have added all the necessary information, now it's time to get sign off. So you want to click on the admin section on the left side, and that will bring down a button called Club Signatures. In order for people to sign off on it, you have to set up the people who are going to sign. Just because you added contacts into the grant doesn't pass that through, because your contacts could be different than your signatories. So you need to set up your signatures. And the way you do that is clicking on the Club Signatures button. Once you've got that there, you see that there are a very similar window to your contacts. In this window, because I'm using a club grant as the example, it says number of club signatures required 3. That's changed to 2. So you need to have 2 signatures for the lead club, like Art explained earlier. And it's just a matter of selecting those club members, clicking that double arrow button so that they move over into the permission area. And that will allow them to sign for the grant when it's made live. So you hit save, you'll get a little window or a little green notification saying that that authority's been established. Then you click on the club grants view again. That brings you back to your details, and you can click on Club Collect Grant Signatures, which will give them a heads up that they need to sign. So you hit OK. Boom. It now sends out a message saying that people need to sign and that they've been listed as a signatory for this grant. It again says 3 here, but you only need 2 going forward. That decision was made to change that number. And then once it's done, that'll actually change to signatures completed. One handy tool in the system is the activity in the signature log. You can see everything that's been done on this grant just by clicking on either of those tabs. And it's a really useful way for tracking where you're at in the process. Signatures must be completed before processing. So this is what it looks like when your grant is now in the system. It's basically got budget information. It shows its current status, submitted grant for club approval. When those people sign off, then it changes its status. There's also helpful videos on the left-hand side if you want to review them. This is a pretty step-by-step instructional presentation, though. I tried to make it really basic. So obviously there's more, we can handhold some additional way if need be, but are there any questions before I move into our real world example? Okay, so this is a real world example of a grant that's been done in the past. This was for the St. Francis House Playground in Gainesville. And just like I described when I was showing you where you entered the description, what they wrote was right there. And it's kind of the who, what, when, where, how. You have to imagine that somebody who's reading this and that's reviewing these grants doesn't know a thing about your community, doesn't necessarily know a thing about the organization that you're helping or the people that you're helping. So you really want to be assume that they know nothing. Give them the whole context, the overview, and make sure that you can make a PDF of your grant when you click on the download PDF button. So I wanted to show that to you here because I didn't show that in the previous area. So on the, as you scroll down looking at this real world example, you have the lead club, you have the grant contacts right there. You've got your funding request, which again is 50%. That hasn't changed. You have your income sources, and it shows when, as you can see, like there's modifications that were made to that grant. So it keeps an ongoing track so you can see it really quick on the dashboard of who's done what, when, where, and how. So receipts, want to make sure that you have all your receipts and all your expense items shown clearly. They've all been entered here. Grant documents, this is the documents section of the grant. So it logs each of those things that you've updated, and it has links to them and stores them in DACDB in case you need to update them or remove them or anything like that. So these are the ones that they uploaded for this grant. I don't know why it says body on the screen. I was explaining the importance of photos. So most of us have never seen this grant, but this project, and having these photos kind of gives you an idea that this was a pretty plain area, and then you had Rotarians come into it. They worked together. They built this playground. They kept their signage under $1,000. And then they did a ribbon cutting with after photos of people who are going to be participating in it and people who are involved in the project. So be sure to take photos. You can take video. You want to communicate the hard work that your club's done. And one really good way of doing that is with visuals. So key takeaways. It's got to be a Rotary project. So we don't allow pass-throughs for other organizations to just get money. This is something your club's doing. Remember that district grants and grant-funded projects are one time. It's not a year after year, every year commitment. It's something you're doing now to make an impact, and that it will sustain itself into the future. So it won't require additional funding. It has to be completed by April 1st. All the work, all the expenses, all the income, everything has to be done by April 1st for reporting purposes. The MOU, you need to make sure you understand your MOU, your terms and conditions, your COIs. Don't be afraid to disclose anything. It's really important that you do that. Like I shared earlier, there's a difference between non-disclosure and disqualification. If you don't disclose, then that's a problem administratively. But just because you have a conflict doesn't mean that you won't be able to receive grant funding. We just have to know about it, and Rotary Foundation has to know about it. Make sure all the work is done through DACDB for documentation purposes. 50% or less of the project. I think I hammered that home. Other things other requirements. 3 members attending grants seminar 2, and it looks like it's cutting off. I apologize. So this is grant seminar 1. This is submission of your grant. This is how to do it. Grant seminar 2 is what you have to do after you've received your grant. So I think Tim answered this in the group chat because there's some confusion. So you need to have 1 member here today, 3 members in August. So what that allows you to do is, if you have any issues or we have anything we need to cover that have come up since you've been awarded your grant, we can handle them then. Make sure you once you've submitted your grant that you don't spend anything until you get the approval. And that's really important, because if you spend monies before they've been approved by the foundation, then you can't be reimbursed for those monies. It's a really hard rule by the foundation. You should always think in terms of the project proceeding, regardless of how much grant funding you're going to get. the assumption is that this is shovel ready. This is something you're going to do regardless of whether you get your full asked district grant amount or less. Make sure that you deliver a lot of value to a lot of people with your project. Be sure to have a dedicated bank account. And if you have a project ready to go right now, put in your application. Don't delay. Sometimes we have projects that go sideways. In fact, usually every year we have a few. So if you have something that comes up during the year, mid-year, make sure you put in your application just in case there is some extra. So here's the things coming up. Share committee's meeting in May, after we've gotten all of the grants in by the 15th. We're going to rate all of your grants or all of our grants and apply a ranking score, and that'll determine who has priority order. And then we're going to play Solomon and decide how much each grant deserves to get, and then we'll notify you of what the decision was made. You shouldn't start at that point. You're only going to start after the money comes back, which is usually in August, September. But the big thing is just don't spend the money early. Really encourage you not to do that. Make sure your project's done by March. And that really is it. I'm going to have my contact and Tim's contact up, and then we can kind of open up the floor for COVID questions, grant questions, all of the above.
Jonathan, and Tim answered this question. It was from Julie in the Rotary Club of Baker County. Does the club have to have all the money up front and then the grant is a reimbursement?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, but you can do construction draws. I mean,
Correct.
you can do a little bit of the grant, submit for reimbursement, reimburse yourself, and do the rest of it, depending on the project, if the project allows that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Jonathan, I have a question concerning the COVID grants. Are there any exceptions to the pass-through rule? Let's say a local agency here in St. Johns County desperately needs the money soon, and the project basically is trying to fund their current cash needs. I'm hearing that the general rules would be no pass-throughs.
Yeah.
Are there exceptions for COVID grants?
Not that I've heard.
Dennis, that would be no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
There's no exceptions. We don't contribute money to other organizations.
Okay.
So I think you just need to find a way, if it's possible, if you're dealing with a food bank and you can pay the supplier directly. I mean, we just can't pay the food bank directly for that, right, Art?
We can pay the food bank directly. We cannot pay the food bank. You said the food bank. We cannot do pass-through money, period. If they are looking to purchase something, Dennis, then that's what we need to address. Is what's that purchase? How do we get into that supply chain? They create that purchase. We get that invoice. We pay that invoice.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And that's not considered a pass-through.
It is not. We bought something. You've got the receipt for the something. I'm sorry if that sounds like a side door to that, but we just do not contribute cash. You can, as a club,
Exactly.
we cannot do that with Rotary Foundation funds.
Great. Thanks for the clarification.
When is notification of for acceptance of the COVID projects going to be given?
So COVID grants, and this is the difference in COVID versus general district grants. That $65,000 that we've got set aside, you can be putting in applications for a portion of that money now. We will meet as quickly after May 15th, which is the close of applications, and we will take and set aside only those COVID grants at that point in time. You may have seen on that application that Jonathan showed, there is a radio button for selecting COVID. Select COVID and also then select an area of focus, whether it's maternal and child health. It could be, which actually would speak probably to both medical and food, but select one of the 6 areas of focus to go with that COVID. That's how we'll know to separate those. And we'll let you know as quickly as possible. I already have Rotary Foundation approval on that portion of those funds. Here is the difference. You are funding those as clubs until we get the block grant, which will not occur until late July or August. So you can submit receipts and final reports as quickly as you want to, but we can't get you the money any faster than that because we don't have it. So what we're doing is we're authorizing some expenditures prior to the start of the new Rotary year. That's the difference in the COVID grants.
Hey, Jonathan, this
Yes,
is
sir.
Ken Smallwood from the Rotary Club of Orange Park.
Hey, Ken.
Quick question. Will the district continue to be a clearinghouse or maybe a central pivot point for clubs in need of DDF and clubs who have unused DDF that we can get together and support other projects? Thank you.
Boy, that's above my head.
Ken, clubs do not have DDF in 6970. The district has this DDF and allocates it on a competitive basis. Does that answer
Well, I
your question?
understand that clubs do not have the DDF, but if there are clubs that are needing to have additional funding for their projects that other clubs are not aware of.
Got it.
Is there
Okay.
a way that you can broker getting us together?
Yes, I'm not sure what it is, but I think that if that would probably require an email to Jonathan and Tim.
Yeah.
There's no place to put it on the application. So if an email to Jonathan and Tim telling people what's going on and why they could use some additional funds, that would probably be the only way we could facilitate that.
Then we could send it out to all the clubs from that point, and people could.
Yeah,
pursue.
same way we did on the global grant discussion today.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yep.
So I guess I would ask the district governor to send out an open request for any club that has a project that seems worthy and offer it to other clubs to participate in their project if those clubs don't happen to have their own project.
Good idea. And we'll, Jonathan and Tim can relay that to the Gov.
Yep.
Because the Gov's not on here.
Yep.
So just a couple of follow-ups, and if there's more questions, jump in, but a word about the conflict of interest. If someone in your club is on the board of the nonprofit you're working with, is that a conflict of interest? And if you have to think about it, it is. It's really that simple. Just put it in there as a conflict. It does not mean it disqualifies you, but it has to be disclosed. That came up a couple of times this year. We also had a couple of things happen this year that I would call reverse pass-through funding. We had a club or two or more that we were unaware of it until we actually did the audit. And there is an audit committee that determines the reimbursements of these grants as they come in. And we were unaware of it until that came in. But Club A, the Rotary Club of Shark Valley, is doing a Rotary grant for $2,000. They're doing a project for $2,000. They listed as club funds for $1,000, and they're requesting $1,000 of matching funds. And they're doing it with the local YMCA. But then when we get the bank account, we see that the YMCA gave the club $1,000 so that the club would have $1,000 to contribute to the project. In essence, the club has contributed zero to the project because now that they've funded it, the Y paid $1,000 of it, the district paid $1,000 of it. This is to be club engagement. It is not, we're not doing a grant with that nonprofit. We're doing a grant as a district with that club. So please don't side door us with those again this year. That could create an issue. Were there other questions regarding COVID? So Jonathan's gotten very sharp on this over the course of this will be his third year. Tim is his mini-me this year because it's a 3-year assignment, just like the District Rotary Foundation chair is. So I'm aging out and Jeanette is my mini-me. And so we're all available to answer these questions. And you've seen that we are all smart enough that when we don't know the answer, we defer it to somebody who might. Please don't step in it before you look and ask us if this is going to work. Remember, COVID we can spend early, but we cannot spend before it's approved by the district share committee. In our district, leadership does not make the decisions. A committee comprised of our clubs that earn their way onto that committee makes those decisions on how those funds are shared. And that's a key element of how we do this stuff. It's you folks, it's our members that make those decisions. So please get those applications in so that we can review them. We always send out an award letter, and sometimes it will have some contingencies in it. If we see a hole, like your club forgot to put in an MOU and it's the only thing preventing you from getting that grant, we're going to put that in there as a contingency, or we're going to send you an email in advance and tell you that, hey, upload your MOU so that we can get this taken care of. Tom and ML, I saw your note. No, you do not have to attend the August seminar if you're doing a global grant. The global grant is covered often one-on-one, as you know, because we have so many moving parts and pieces on that. Ken, you unmuted yourself again. You got another one?
Nope. I just want to say, Jonathan and Tim, great job.
Thank you.
Anybody else got another one? We got 3 minutes.
Is Jeanette going to shave her head?
I've been coaching her on that. I don't know that she'll go that way. But in all honesty, this isn't high def. I haven't shaved mine for a few days, so I don't know. By the way, this next session that starts at 4 o'clock is for global grants. We'll do a run through on global grants so that you can get a little bit more educated on that. We do have a lot of projects. I mean, you see Tom Cohn on here. They also have a global grant going. I mean, it's for a school in Zimbabwe. We've got a water project. I saw Rosemary Takix on here. They're working on a water project in Honduras. We've got global grants in the infantile stages in lots of different places. So please reach out to us, and if you want to jump on board with some of those, and we'll tell you how. We'll send you a PDF of what they're doing, where they're at. Maybe you've got some expertise in one of those countries, can share your expertise and move these things along. Bill Griffin, you unmuted yourself. Are you going to share your words of wisdom?
Well, I'd asked a question, I typed it in the chat also. So for the COVID, if you had 5 clubs that got together, would it be $2,000 as a ceiling for each of the 5 clubs? So
no, because we have 63 clubs in the district and only $65,000, and we know that not every club will apply. The lead club, the club that writes the grant, is eligible for $2,000 and $2,000 match. Partnering clubs can do $1,000 and $1,000 match. That's the cap.
Okay.
If a club partners on someone else's grant, they cannot write their own. Get one bite of the apple on the COVID grants. We do not know if we will be able to fund them all. We'll fund what we can in hopes of sharing that with all our clubs. So if we have a club, if all 63 clubs came at us and wanted $2,000 a piece, we'd probably fund them at $1,000 a piece so that everybody would be able to participate and help in their individual communities. But it will be a share committee. These will be evaluated on bang for the buck, who they're going to help, how they're going to help, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
Sorry, one other quick piece on that too. You saw that description that Jonathan used as an example. That window in the detail page of the application has been shrunk. Please limit that simple description to about 250 words. I have to capture that and put it into our block grant. I literally got pages of description. Describe all you want in the application portion of the detail, but not on the front page of the detail. Because I will not always understand what you're talking about when you write that, and I have to reduce it to 250 words. I hope that made sense. Anything else?
I've pulled 3 more lucky numbers.
Is that all you need to say about that, Carolyn?
Yep.
Cool.
That's
So
Good luck.
you got 10 minutes to run to the potty. This one also hit the cap. We only have 100 people can get on this bridge. So if you want to be on the global grant bridge, don't hang up and dial back in. Just leave your screen blank for a minute while you go get a soda or a adult beverage after a day like this. And we'll see you back in 10 minutes.